Ford O'Connell, political analyst. Nice to talk to you in D.C. the morning after the debate.
Well, it's good to be here.
So was there a clear winner, do you think?
I don't think there was a clear winner, but I think that three people stood out: Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and Donald Trump. And the reason why I say Trump is his position so high in the polls. I'm not sure it matters what he does. As long as he doesn't hurt himself, he's doing well. But I think there's a new dynamic going on, which I think is going to take shape in this race, which is the battle between Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz.
Why did they both do well?
Well, they did well because their strengths were separate things. They almost canceled each other out. Marco Rubio was a little bit stronger on national security and foreign policy, and the reason is because the hawks of the Republican Party are still the dominant portion of it, whereas Ted Cruz did much better and was far more muscular on immigration, a very important issue to the Republican electorate.
Is Cruz the candidate to watch now?
I think he is the candidate to watch, but the real question is going to be whether or not he wins the Iowa caucus. If he wins the Iowa caucus, he could be going toe-to-toe with Trump as the co-front runner.
And Trump is still winning, I guess, the hearts and minds, at least on social media?
Well, he is definitely winning the hearts and minds on social media. He's the most talked about, whether we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. He's really dominating both the mainstream media echo chamber and the social media echo chamber.
So what happens to the rest of the pack? How much longer is the group of candidates so large, and who's got the most to lose at this point?
Well, I think the most to lose, and the writing's been on the wall for quite some time, is Florida Governor Jeb Bush, because he's raised the most money, and even though he's spent so much in advertising, every time he buys an ad, his numbers seem to go down. It's just not his cycle. The writing's on the wall. I think he's going to get out by the time we're done with New Hampshire. But really, I think that this field is going to wean itself down after the first two nominating contests, which are Iowa and New Hampshire.
What's going to be the most important thing to watch between now and then in terms of what we hear from the candidates and how they behave?
Well, I think we're going to be watching the polls very carefully. Of course, they're predictive of nothing, but it forms everyone's opinion between now and then. It's really going to be who wins Iowa and who wins New Hampshire. And if they're the same person, then they are certainly, that person's the front runner.
And does terror remain the number one issue now for the campaign, or can we see that veer into something else?
You know, I think for Republicans, terror and national security, you almost have to lump them together, will be the top issue going forward. But whether or not it continues to be the top issue going in the general election is largely dependent on world events. I mean, unfortunately, it's sad to say, if buildings go boom, boom, the Republicans are in a better position.
It seems, though, that the economy has taken a bit of a back seat.
Well, the economy's taken a backseat. It's still the number two issue, but it's an issue that is not as important right now in the Republican primary as it is, say, in the Democratic electorate. But I do think it's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 issues, no matter what the stock market does between now and next November.
So if you are in Hillary Clinton's camp, how do you start viewing the Republican contenders now, the day after?
Well, I start looking at their strengths and weaknesses and what is their palatability to a general election. What a lot of people don't realize here is that unless we have a war or recession, 43 states are not in play. There's only 7 states in play. And if we look back at Romney and Obama's difference in numbers in states like Florida and Ohio and Colorado and Virginia, guess what? We are talking about 600,000 voters that are going to decide this election. And the question is depending on who rises among the Republicans, which one causes me the most problem. And if I had to say right now who that would be, who's the biggest threat at this moment with the polls, I would say it's Florida Senator Marco Rubio.
What was the best line of the debate, or the best moment in your view?
There were a lot of good moments. I think one of the biggest ones, at least the one that's getting the most traction the day after, is that Donald Trump, you can't insult your way to the presidency. Now, that may be true, but I think he could conceivably insult his way to the Republican nomination.
Why hasn't Donald Trump, who has a lot of admirers and a lot of critics, why hasn't he stumbled up until now?
Look, the man has defied the political laws of gravity at least 17 times. It is conceivable he could say or do something that could turn a whole bunch of people off, but he's a unique political animal. What he is tapping are the people that said no more politics as usual, and people who really think the entire system is corrupt and want the whole thing gutted, and right now they're going to go with Donald for as long as Donald can keep walking on air.
Ford O'Connell, it's been great chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.